Welcome into the Cards Hub postgame show, or Cards Central postgame show, right here on STL Sports Central. He is Matthew Rocchio. I am Chris Pelikan. Cards win 9-6, coming back from a huge deficit. Thought the game felt like it was over pretty early for us with Miles Mikolas not doing a fantastic job. But Rock, I mean, what do you say about this team? Again, it's not just a theme. It's not just a one-off. The hard nine, this team plays. I mean, they don't give up in games. And lo and behold, it led to a second straight win over Cleveland. They wrap up this series, go for the sweep tomorrow. But, just another impressive win in the face of some adversity caused by maybe not the best outing by Miles Mikolas.
Yeah, I mean, they keep fighting. They're never out of games because they can always keep fighting. And that's the biggest thing with this Cardinals team. No matter how many times you keep doubting them, and I will admit I keep doubting them in games like these, they continue to prove you wrong. What?
It's a reflex. It's hard not to.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess the reflex is wrong. C. Ramirez comes in and says, did I say Miles 7+? I meant 7 runs given up. Got to give Gorman credit. His swinging looking a lot better, as well as his hitting approach. Hope he continues to prove me wrong. Go Cards. Yeah, a lot of good things to pull out of the back end of this game from those 8 straight runs they scored starting in that 5th inning.
Absolutely. And again, this is the Cards Central postgame show sponsored by DraftKings. Folks, this show is yours. Jump into the comment section here on your YouTube chat. And while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe button. Do us a solid on that one. And we will love to jump in on your comments throughout the course of this thing. Lots to get to, again, as the Cardinals win 9-6 in Cleveland, despite trailing 6-1 in the 4th inning. And Rock, let's maybe start with the bat on this one, right? Because Miles Mikolas, it's tough because, you went into this season and I think you were hoping for a guy who would give your team a chance to win on somewhat of a regular basis. And for the most part, he's done that. Recently, we're sort of getting away from that a little bit, but this was a tough one because Miles Mikolas went through that order the first time and carved up a Guardians lineup that's been struggling, did exactly what you thought. And then you get into the 4th and he walks Carlos Santana. And then after that, it's just, I mean, this is kind of funny. I pulled this off of Twitter from Ryan Lewis, who's one of the Guardians beat writer for, I guess it's the Akron, insert whatever name the Akron newspaper is. But his quote was, when you want that one piece of ice on the bottom of the cup and they all hold back in the cup forever. And then they all charge at you at once when you're trying to kind of, because that's the Guardians offense. They went 24 some odd straight innings without getting a run. And then all of a sudden it went, after he walks Santana, the Guardians follow with double ground out, double home run, single, triple before the side was retired. That inning in and of itself is going to kill any team, right? Again, kudos to the Cardinals for coming back, but where is your level of concern with Miles Mikolas right now?
It's pretty high. If you just compare him to what we saw earlier this season, it's got to be problematic. He has the blow up in Boston. That's his worst game. But he also had 2 scoreless 5+ inning starts in the month of May. In June, or excuse me, that was in April. My apologies. In June, he has the 3 middle starts of June where he goes, May. I'm just off by a complete month. My apologies. And those 3 middle starts in May where he goes 1 earned run, 0 earned runs, 1 earned run, going 5 1/3, 6 and 6. And then you look at June and we have 3 earned runs, 6 earned runs, 2, 2, and then today it's just the zeros turns into ones and the ones turn into 2s, and then all of a sudden, we talk in August and September, the 2s turning into 3s and 4s, because those are going to get a lot harder to consistently come back from, once every 5 days.
You look at it too, and, he did pitch well against the Reds last weekend. Still lost the game. Cardinals saved him from losing his 4th straight decision today. That ERA will be, I guess it is now north of 5. Is this, in your mind, is this time to start considering other options? Obviously this team is in a playoff chase at this point in time. They're a wild card team. They're sniffing the Cubs. It's right there. Milwaukee's playing great baseball right now. Can you afford to continue to have Miles Mikolas struggle? And again, I know their options are somewhat limited with him. You obviously can't put him in the bullpen. That's not sort of where he is. And obviously, as you mentioned, when he's right, he does exactly what this team needs, which is give them innings, right? I mean, he's one of the most efficient pitchers in baseball when he's right. But I mean, again, it took comeback of epic proportions today to prevent him from his 4th straight loss.
I guess this conversation, I guess, would be different if Michael McGreevy's last start was more just dominant. But I mean, I'm okay with saying go with Michael McGreevy. We just talked with Bernie yesterday on the Randy Carricker show with Brooke Grimsley in the morning, and I brought up an article from The Athletic that Eno Saris did talking about all the rookies so far in baseball, or all the major rookie pitchers in baseball. And his breakdown of Michael McGreevy was, if he was a qualifying pitcher and if he extends what he's doing, he would have essentially the best location in Major League Baseball. But he has below average stuff.
Right.
And so for me, that sounds like a guy who I'm willing to give him, what would it be? 12 to 10 to 13 starts if you put him in before the All-Star break, and before the end of June. I'm okay with giving him 10, 15 starts and seeing what Michael McGreevy is. I'd roll with it. But to your point, that entire conversation is different now because you're a winning team making a run for apparently, for first place before the All-Star break, according to Wayne Watts. So that changes this. That changes this conversation. It changes the conversation around Jordan Walker, as we've seen over the last 48 hours. It changes everything.
Absolutely, it does. And yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a real easy option, right? Because I don't think the Cardinals want to eat what's left of that contract, which would seemingly be the only way that you get rid of him at this point in time. So I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe, we talk a lot about runway. It wasn't supposed to be for Miles Mikolas, who's on the wrong side of 35. But maybe he gets a little bit more runway because he has had some good moments. All right, enough of the negative. Again, on a fantastic day where the Cardinals come back and win, let's focus on the positive on this thing. And let's talk about this team's offense. And you and I have both showered praise on Brant Brown, deservingly so, for the way this team approaches their at-bats. And, when they go down 6-1, I mean, I'm right there with you. My mind is saying game over, right? I even wrote it down in my notes. Game over, right? But then you start thinking about it, it's like, this team has seen similar deficits and gotten through those. And, you come up and they're down 6-1, and a lot of times teams will shut down at that point in time. And it's funny because, what happens in the 5th, right? So Burley, with a great little piece of hitting to fight off a tough pitch, flares it to left field with Donnie and Wynn on there. So it's 6-3 at that point in time. You get Slade Ciccone out of the game, who had pitched really well. I mean, 5 earned runs over his last 4 starts combined for Slade Ciccone. So this guy came in throwing the ball pretty well. So they battle. Slade,
Can we talk about how Slade Ciccone is a Batman villain? Like that's the name of a Batman villain. What is this? This man is not a real human being pitching in 2025. That's a Batman villain.
Well, it's fair. But and he was, today the good guys won apparently, but I mean, after that, right? Like you go to the 6th inning and then it's just single Newt, Arenado, Gorman, they all lead off with singles. It's 6-4 at that point in time. Pozo singles with the bases loaded to load the bases. Then Victor Scott, I mean, boy, it is just fun to watch Victor Scott progress, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, that little dip was a bummer, but leaving him in, and I think some of the conversation was that Marmol debated between pinch hitting for him when he eventually would go on to hit that double. So impressive job by Marmol not pulling that trigger, and good job by Victor Scott for immediately rewarding him for that non-decision.
Yeah, 100%, because he comes in and he jumps on a good first pitch from a lefty, Tim Herron, and all of a sudden this game's tied, right? So, I mean, it wasn't, the long ball was there today. Donovan obviously leads off with one. Contreras puts a nice, exclamation point on the game with one. But, I mean, in the middle, it's just solid pitching or solid hitting, good, tough at-bats where they're fighting pitches off, they're driving balls in the corner. I mean, again, I don't know what else you say about this team. We've got Youngry, we've got all our other little things, but I mean, at the end of the day, they are just, 1 through 9 guys putting together pretty nice at bats.
Yeah. And the offense is obviously impressive when you're spreading out the RBIs from, the 9 through, I think it was the 6th spot. That's what you need this offense to do. They need to spread things out. I was thinking today watching this game, I'm like, is there a stat service out there that breaks down small ball runs versus home runs? Yeah. Versus I got to find what the breakdown is league wide, because obviously they're going to be higher in the small ball and lower in the home runs and slug RBIs as much. And I want to see what those numbers are, because I know that Contreras, ruins the stat a little bit, but the essentially the winning runs, the seventh and eighth runs, those runs again being small ball, not even being hits, being both sacrifice plays to kind of put the icing on the top, extend the lead, give you the lead, and then extend the lead. That's impressive. And the fact that the home run didn't have to come into play speaks to what I also think is the other biggest factor of this game, which is the relief pitching. Obviously, Maton has a rough spot there, but he gets out of it, which is all that matters. Ryan Helsley comes in, does what he's got to do. But for me, those Steven Matz, that Steven Matz outing was unbelievable, because it's not just that he comes in and he gets out of those situations. It's how he did it, which is soft contact after soft contact after soft contact after soft contact. I mean, literally, he's getting easy ground outs, an infield single, and then a pop out. You go to the next inning, I think he lets somebody on, but also same thing. Ground out, pop out to the catcher. It's like soft contact after soft contact. Steven Matz was incredible in stabilizing things through the fifth and the sixth inning and giving the Cardinals offense some time to go to work.
He is Matthew Rocchio. I'm Chris Pelikan. This is the Card Central Postgame Show. It's brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours, folks. Jump into that chat. Join up. Hit the like and subscribe buttons while you're down there, but let us know what you thought about today's game. Cards win 9-6 to take their second in a row against the Cleveland Guardians. And you mentioned Matz, and I think we need to spend a little bit more time on him, because, Steven Matz for the early part of the season was fantastic, right? Like they bounced him around a little bit. The role wasn't certain. Is he a sixth starter? Is he a guy who's going to – but he just responded by going out there and being a professional and pitching really well. And truth be told, I think you and I talked about this a lot. His trade value seemed to be like, okay, here's a guy who people are going to want to look at come trade deadline time. Well, now he's an integral part of what you do. There's no two ways about that. And the last three outings Steven Matz has had, he's allowed 7 earned runs in those 3. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to worry a little bit. Is the luster coming off of Steven Matz? Is the league refiguring him out in this role, whatever? And so for him to come in, and the only hit that they got on him was the kind of that little in-between infield single that I think was Gabriel Arias had, that he bounced it kind of over Matz and Wynn, tried to barehand it. It was just a really, really tough play. But to your point, soft contact the entire time. He came in at a crucial point in this game and gave them 1 2/3 of one-hit baseball. Again, I mean, like, if Steven Matz is what we've seen most of this year and not the last 3 outings, he's such a weapon for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible. That's exactly what you want to see. Matt Svanson getting the win feels like we need to get Steven Matz more than just a hold for that game. Steven Matz was incredible, and it's just that middle inning, getting the relief pitching to extend from a bad start to your relief pitching has just been so huge. The fact that they didn't really need to use that at all in Chicago for both good and bad reasons, first 2 games, last 2 games, was unfortunate. It wasn't unfortunate. It was kind of good because they didn't have it there. Everyone was stretched out and tired, and they were pulling from their 5th spot in Memphis right now, because the top 4 were all held back by the rules of the roster and things like that. So yeah, it was a huge game for them to get that win, because obviously the Guardians offense has been anemic coming into this game, 21 innings without scoring a run. So you had to finally, withstand 1 good inning from them, and you did. And you ended up scoring 8 straight after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Who else stood out to you, Rock, in terms of what we saw offensively today? We had a couple of comments about Nolan Gorman, and he's another one that you and I have spent probably more time than we should have on Nolan Gorman over the course of this year and his lack of runway. And it seems now, obviously, with Jordan Walker injured, that the runway is getting extended. And, you got to be probably, I can't fathom anyone saying that they're disappointed with what we've seen in Nolan Gorman the last few weeks, because not only is the production there, but again, that approach, and this guy who forever was a guy who you knew if you saw a stuff guy on the mound, somebody with a big slider or Kodai Senga dropping the ghost fork or any of that stuff, that Gorman would just look silly. And, I know the power numbers aren't exploding onto the page at this point in time, but he is really putting together good at bats, isn't he, day in and day out?
Yeah, and the strikeout numbers, while they are starting to, as the power numbers are getting a little bit higher, because he was slugging around, 300. or so for a while there. And now he's slugging around 400. So the strikeout rate's going up as he's hitting the ball a little bit harder. So he's finding a balance in that pullback, because he had pulled things back, and that's why the strikeouts were down, the walks were up, but the power had gone down a lot. And so he goes through that rough stretch for a little bit there, and he's been able to roar right back away from it. And the last few games, he's been great. And unlike some other players, unfortunately, Nolan Gorman seems to finally be hitting a little bit of catching some air off the runway at the right time while also being healthy. And that's a big thing right now, because as we see with Jordan Walker, and as we saw with other outfielders and things like that, it just, timing is a huge thing. And sometimes when you're hot, there's not at bats, and when there are at bats available, you're the one who's hurt. And right now, Gorman's kind of hit a good patch, and hopefully they can keep riding that.
Yeah, what do you do with him in terms of getting him playing time, right? Like, I mean, they're at a spot where obviously, Burleson hasn't been great the last 4 or 5 days, but he came up with a nice hit today. But I mean, overall, obviously, Burleson's a guy who needs to be in the lineup every day with what he's doing. And Jordan Walker starting a rehab assignment today in Memphis, so you expect him to be back sooner than later. Kind of in your mind, Rock, how do you see Nolan Gorman fitting into sort of the equation with this team, especially when they're fully healthy?
Well, right now that against righties, the equation's pretty easy, which is, I guess when people get healthy, it gets trickier, because right now it's easy because you got just Donovan second, Newt at left, Burleson and right, and Gorman at DH. And once Ivan Herrera comes back, even against a righty, you're playing Ivan Herrera. So how do you get him in the game? Because you're not going to play him at catcher. You get to play the hot hand, which is a good thing. But if I had to optimize against a righty, I guess I would say I would probably take out, I think Gorman. Oh, damn it. See, now Gorman's going to lose at bat. Oh, crap.
I mean, do we get to the point, Rock, where we have
Gorman loses at bats?
Do we have to start talking about Nolan Arenado not playing every day?
I've been on that train for a while, but as long as he's actually slugging around, as long as he's slugging plus 400, which is what he's doing over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and making the plays that he keeps on making at third base, I think the Cardinals would be much better trading the potential of Gorman with Nootbaar and playing and shifting things around to get Gorman in instead of a Nootbaar. I don't think they'll do that, but I mean, it's just tricky too, because we're talking about it's third base defense, which I prioritize higher than left field defense. And I'm just looking at Nolan Arenado's June right now, because for me with him, everything goes with his slugging percentage. It's always been the marker of when he completely is falling off a cliff and when he's actually playing well. And so I'm trying to see what he's slugging. Feel like he's slugging like close to 415 or 420 or so in the month of June, which means if he's playing the defense like he is this year, you got to keep playing him. And I don't like that. I'm just saying from the Cardinals perspective, I don't think fans can expect them to do anything differently.
Yeah, it's I don't envy Ollie Marmol.
He's slugging 429 with a 741 OPS in June. They're not taking away at bats from Nolan Arenado for the actual baseball reasons, and because I think there is something. And this is Randy's big point on this thing. He thinks there's the political side of it looks crappy to everybody else in baseball if the Cardinals start benching Nolan Arenado to get young players at bats while he's actually hitting the ball well and playing platinum glove level defense.
And I don't disagree with that. And I do think that him and Contreras are sort of the veteran heartbeat of this group right now. I think that, Arenado's he's an intangibles guy at this point in time. I mean, baseball's a numbers game, so it's hard to quantify what the leadership thing does. But I do think that, it's hard to do that with a guy who probably has the clubhouse, who's influential with a lot of the younger guys out there. So again, I mean, I agree. I just also come back to it though and say it's not
post games though. Like I saw another one with Tamar Scher where he's just like, I love this Cubs series so much. This is what baseball is. And I'm like, yeah, they're not benching this dude. I bet the locker room flipping loves him when he's on.
Yeah, 100%. I just, to me, it seems like it's not that tough to give everybody a day off here and there.
That's true.
Like, and if you do that, right? Like, I mean, I'm even talking about Mason Wynn, who, Donovan can play shortstop. It's the thing you get when you have Brendan Donovan on your team. He can play every position out there,
And Wynn is an interesting one because he's the one guy that you can there's a logical reason, despite his success and the fact that you would never want to take away at bats from a young player right now. The logical reason is because of how young he is and how important he is, you want to start giving Mason Wynn some time off because he's got a bad back. And I don't know how many people are aware of that fact, but his back's been bothering him and they need to take care of that. And so getting him off his feet every once in a while, I think is important going forward.
Yeah, no question about that. And so I get that you have guys who don't want to leave the lineup, that sort of thing. I mean, it is what it is. But based on what you're getting from a production standpoint, as this team gets healthier, I think it's important to make sure that everyone understands that, we got to look out for the long term. We've got to do what's best. And if Gorman's swinging the bat the way he is, if Jordan Walker ends up being a guy who, you want to give that runway to, Herrera's hitting the ball well, it's not a big deal for them to play 5 out of 6 days a week. That you're not.
No, I think you're right.
You're not destroying them at that point in time, but I don't know that they're going to end up doing this. All right, guys, this is the Card Central postgame show brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Go ahead and download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5, get you $50 in Pick 6 credits, better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
This is the Card Central postgame show on STL Sports Central. He is Matthew Rocchio. I am Chris Pelikan. Cards rally from a 6-1 deficit today to knock off the Guardians. They are now 1 game away from a sweep. And Rock, tomorrow they go to Matthew Liberatore to try to complete the sweep against Logan Allen. What are you expecting out of Libby tomorrow? Right, he's kind of been a little bit of the enigma of late with some really good outings, some really not so good outings. It'd be nice after you use 5 innings of bullpen relief today to maybe try to get deeper into that game so you can give everybody a day. But what are your thoughts on Liberatore tomorrow?
Yeah, I just need to see something. I just need to see him settle down and just perform the way he had before. He was looking like he could be the number 2 for a while there, and I still believe he can be, but it's been a little shaky the last 2 games. And with him, it's the same case as a lot of guys. He doesn't have, that top end strikeout power, relative to the Cardinals. He's their biggest strikeout guy, I think, when it comes to pure stuff, alongside Sonny Gray, obviously Mr. One Hitter, and 11 strikeouts. But you know what you're going to get from Liberatore. And so he's got to be dialed in. He's got to be pitching, not throwing. And I just need to see a good game from him, because everything for this Cardinals team for me is what's the 4-man rotation if they're a playoff team. And I know what Sonny Gray, I think I know what Sonny Gray is now. I don't know what Sonny Gray is in October, but I'm at least getting a better roll of the dice. Now we got to move on to what's Liberatore, and we'll think about 3 and 4 as we move through July.
Yeah, and I look at Libby, and it's, for me, him and McGreevy are kind of funny because I think from a pure stuff standpoint, they're polar opposites. I do think Libby's got higher end stuff, but it's funny because their problems seem to be the same thing. When McGreevy struggled last time, everything he was throwing was up in the zone, right? And that's not, we laugh about Steven Matz having some troubles every once in a while. Steven Matz is a sinker pitcher who loves to throw up in the zone. It works for him. But McGreevy was up. And when Liberatore struggles, it seems like that big hook is up. That fastball is up. And, again, it just seems like you can figure it out pretty quickly with him early on in a game as to whether or not it's going to be good by whether or not he's pounding the bottom part of the zone. And so I think that'll be the big thing to look at for this team. What are your thoughts on how they kind of go about tomorrow, right? So, again, 5 innings from the bullpen today. You'd look and say Maton's probably not available tomorrow. Helsley didn't throw but 13 or 14 pitches today. So maybe out there, they didn't use Romero today. Obviously Mats won't be available tomorrow. Is this a game where, do you push Liberatore regardless of what happens in the game, just to maybe level stuff out a little bit? Or is it a game in your mind where, because this is the funny part, right? Like, I mean, again, I still come from the Tony La Russa school of thought where winning the series is the important thing, right? You want to win series. That's how you make it. Point being, though, I mean, I don't know if this team is in a spot where they can sit there and say, let's give a game away, or let's not, kind of put our best foot forward to try to get this, because I mean, at this point in time, every single game is going to make a big difference as to whether this team is in the wild card, out of the wild card, sniffing first place, or so on and so forth. So just kind of interested to see what Ollie thinks about how to go about tomorrow's game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think JoJo's your planned closer, to your point. The middle innings are going to be very interesting for this team right now, based on what they've done the last few days. I'm trying to think.
I mean, you got Kyle.
I'm trying to think, because could there be a roster move before tomorrow? This is one of those 4 pitchers. I think they're all still Munoz, Graceffo. You don't even know if Granillo's healthy at this point. Has Roy? I think did they bring up Roycroft already?
I don't know on that one. I don't believe so, but I'm not.
So I think Roycroft could be brought up, I believe, after today. I think he hits the 15-day mark, because he went down on the 14th or 13th. So he hits the 15-day mark right now. So I feel like we might see him get brought back up and then more shifting around there, because you got Romero, you got Riley O'Brien, Kyle Leahy, John King. Okay, I mean, yeah, you got four pretty well rested arms in there. So maybe they don't need to go to Chris Roycroft. I've just been looking at that group before, giving them more availability. Yeah, Joseph Polasser. I know Ryan Fernandez can come up, but I'm avoiding that like the plague. So
what's he been doing? Has he been? I mean, honestly, I haven't checked.
He's been doing pretty well. He's been doing pretty well down there.
Turn the corner a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm okay with throwing. I was kind of okay with throwing that name just kind of into the ether for
sure
when everything happened the way it did. So yeah, I think to your point, they got enough bodies in there that they can make it work. If Liberatore only gives them 5 2/3, which I think is still always liable. Just with this group, because you know how the Cardinals are going to handle it. They're not going to let them get much past 85 pitches.
Yep. And just to sort of, you and I tend to do this a lot. We always, early in the season, there was just very, very much discussion about the trade deadline and what this team will do and how do we continue the runway thing and blah, blah, blah. And right, they're halfway through the season. They're smack in the middle of this thing. There's no reason they shouldn't go for the postseason. So, in general, Rock, kind of where is your mindset with this team in terms of how they handle the next month leading up to the trade deadline? Are you an active buyer at this point in time? Are there guys on your roster that you think, I've heard a lot of people talk about, Mo's tendency to make the baseball trade at this point in time, right? Pull somebody off the active roster, in order to find an area, fill an area of need, so to speak. It's going to be a really fun month of July, right? Especially if they continue to play good ball. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on where this team goes, what their mindset should be. Anyone in particular you think that would be a good fit for this group, anyone who you think might be good going out, that sort of thing. I mean, I think we all agree that no one's trading anything high level from our system at this point in time, right? You're not touching Weatherholt. You're not touching Tink Hence. You're not touching a bunch of the guys who are higher level guys, because there's no point in doing that. But, again, there's going to be value out there. And the question just becomes whether or not the Cardinals decide it's important to go get that.
We know how this is going to happen. We're going to hear a lot of names for low-level starters, maybe even guys who have been swingmen in the past, starters and relievers. The Cardinals will then make a move for a name on a tier below all the players you heard reported about. They'll make a move for that guy as a reliever, and then a week after the deadline ends, a starter is going to get hurt. And the Cardinals and everyone's going to be mad that they didn't get a legitimate 30-game starter at the deadline. That's exactly how this is going to go.
So do you expect You don't expect them to do anything other than grab somebody who's maybe a little bargain basement.
Yeah, I expect them to grab essentially somebody else's Miles Mikolas. Sorry, not that bad.
Yeah.
Somebody else's Steven Matz. Another team, Steven Matz. That's where it's a prorated deal for in single digit millions of dollars. Like Matz's would be like 5.5 if you traded him to somebody else. Half of that $11 million for the year. It's going to be a single digit prorated amount of money. Maybe it's a 2-year deal, but it'll be something along the lines where it's like, the guy signed a 2-year, $24 million deal or a 2-year, $20 million deal or something like that. And they're picking up the back half of this year and next year's contract. It'll be one of those pitchers.
Something like that. Do you not see them doing anything to address offense?
Oh God, no. You're going to add more at bats to this equation? Yeah, right. There's people in here saying, I want Adolis Garcia. I want Luis Robert. That's not happening. You guys are crazy.
Yeah, but Rock, I would also say that I think that it's pretty evident if we're going to do Achilles heels with this team, that left-handed pitching can be a little bit rough on this group. And clearly Jordan Walker has not taken the next step. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, it was the Tommy Pham, acquisition along with Eric Fetty. Like, do you not see them maybe trying to grab another outfielder, a right-handed hitting outfielder with a little bit of slug? But I mean, like, again, not at any substantial price, but I mean, there's a ton of guys out there. Lane Thomas got thrown out there, right? And he's a guy who has decent track record. This year's been a rough one for Lane Thomas. And it's like, so again, I don't, it feels like that's the kind of guy that you might see show up. Because right now it's Garrett Hampson, right? And again,
everyone's right about the issues there, but I guess my point is, like, who do you want them, or who do you expect them to say you're sitting this game and we're playing the 29-year-old that has no future with this organization tonight? Like, who's getting those starts taken away?
It's a good question. I feel like if you're getting down the stretch in a tight pennant push, you can sit there and you can hide behind, here are the numbers. This guy hits this against lefties. So, Newt, you're out tonight. Or, Burley, we're not going to play it tonight because your numbers against this guy or this or that. We can play matchups, and on top of that too, I think it's maybe even more for a, off the bench situation later on. And again, I mean, it's just funny because, like, I think you and I talked about, like, where I was saying earlier about the catcher spot, right? Like a spot where it seems like they could upgrade offensively. Now, having said that, all you hear is rave reviews about Pages and Pozo, the way they handle the staff.
It's not changing.
And right now, Pozo's hitting the ball pretty decently as well.
And Pages just had a game.
Big night the other night, and like that's the one area where I sit there and say, I don't know that you per se disrupt the apple cart by saying, we don't think Pedro Pages is a guy that we need to give a ton of runway to, because we look at him as a guy who, gets exposed beyond 50 or 60 starts a year, and so it's like, it feels like you could try to go find a guy, a name guy. I brought up Sean Murphy a bunch because it seems like in Atlanta, they want to move towards Baldwin, the young guy. But again, like it feels like that's the opportunity for this team to improve without really distracting from the long term with this group.
Yeah, logically it all makes sense. I don't see it, and one of the reasons I don't see it is also just because once you get Herrera back, it's a weird thing, but it's one of those things where you know what it is. I'll make a baseball analogy. The Cardinals, with and without Herrera, it's simple. When they have Herrera going up against a right-handed pitch, going up against a lefty, going up against a left-handed pitcher, they're without Herrera, it's a 0-2 count. With Herrera, it's a 2-1 count. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, you're sitting pretty. 2-1 count. I got all day. I don't got 2 strikes. I'm sitting pretty at this at bat. I got days to find a way to get a hit. And then all of a sudden, that second fastball goes right down the plate and paints the corner. It's 2-2, and you're like, I'm up a creek without a paddle. I'm screwed here. That's it. It's one pitch, but it changes everything. That's Ivan Herrera. As soon as Ivan Herrera's in this lineup again, now everything looks fine because you put him at DH. And then you have Wilson Contreras at first base. You have Mason Wynn. You have Nolan Arenado. And then you have, when it comes down to your lefties, You have a Brendan Donovan, who's hitting lefties this year. You have a Lars Nootbaar, who, while he's 100 points down this year, is only career 50 points differently facing lefties as opposed to righties. Then you look at Alec Burleson, who, while his career numbers are crap, this year pretty much hitting exactly the same righty-lefties. If Jordan Walker starts hitting the ball again, his career, they're okay with playing him both righties and lefties. And Nolan Gorman, he's the opposite of Burleson. This year, he sucks against lefties, but career-wise, he's pretty much the same hitter OPS-wise against righties and lefties. So while it's been bad and we're focusing on it because you just got mowed down by 2 lefties in the Cubs series, but in the grand scheme of things, the large numbers of all these players, you actually have a pretty good group of lefties to go against lefties. And as soon as you finally get your best right-handed hitter back in the lineup, I think this feels a lot like a smaller issue.
Yeah. And you're probably right. And again, like, I mean, if we're being honest about it, I mean, you know, statistically speaking, the offense has been far more than adequate this year. It's been good. And so, you know, I mean, to sit there and for me, it's like, I still just struggle internally with the idea that this team really does not have a true 3 or 4 hole hitter. And I don't know that they have one in the pipeline. You know, I know those guys don't grow on trees. I look at this roster and I say, we have tons and tons of 1 hole hitters, 2 hole hitters, 6 hole hitters, 7 hole hitters, you know, and they've been piecing it together this year, doing it that way. But I mean, it just, as a guy who cut his teeth in journalism when Albert Pujols was doing what he did, he just made everyone exponentially better. And it's like, again, I know those guys don't grow on trees. I know you can't go and find Juan Soto's for under 700 million, you know, but by the same token, I just think it's hard to call a lineup complete without guys who are in the middle who you can expect to be slugging around 500, who are 30 plus home run guys. It just makes it so much more difficult. And so again, that's why I guess there's just some level of compensatory thinking on my part that they've got to figure out a way to just get a little bit better everywhere. Because I just still think that it's an incomplete lineup based on the lack of real slug in the middle.
You're not wrong. I just don't know of a trade that they can realistically make this year with all the parameters you just put on with not trading from your stable of youth players and so on and so forth. I just don't think it exists. Now, to your point, the argument in your favor is if you do not have a middle of the order 150 OPS plus player, then you have to have 115 OPS plus players up and down your entire lineup. That's where the argument comes in about getting better at left field or what have you. My issue there is Joseph Polaster says Texas would love Newt. Somebody else says they need to trade Newt. We need to give him better options. Here's my thing about this, guys. We just got to have a conversation about the business, how sports are also a business, and how you're never going to get away from the conversation of value for the contract. And for his career, yes, it's his OPS plus for Lars Nootbaar is like a 105 this year, but he's a career 113 OPS player. And he also has an average of 6 defensive runs saved as a defensive player. That means that for under $3 million a year, the Cardinals are getting a player that is well above average defensively. At, yes, not a very crucial position because his center field defensive run saved in smaller sample size is just below average. But at left field, he's a well above average left fielder, and he's a 13% better than average hitter. And you get that for $3 million a year. That's not a guy you trade. That's a very useful player to help your roster build. Bottom line, of course Texas would want him. Every team would want him because that's the player you want for $3 million.
He'll be really interesting, his free agency a year after this one. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, I've heard people talk about he's a real comp to Brandon Nimmo, who got over $100 million from the Mets. And it's like, can you see yourself giving Lars Nootbaar $100 million? And it's, I don't know in this day and age, right? Like, I mean, maybe he is a $100 million player, based on what he brings. Again, the health is going to be a thing. And when he check swung there in the ninth inning and grabbed his side, I'm like, oh, here comes 3 months on the IL. Walker, you better hurry up and get back. And to his credit, not only did he stay in the game, I mean, he laced one big, he there was no, I think he probably felt something, got scared, but it wasn't anything real severe because again, I mean, if he had pulled his intercostal, like I think they were speculating, And there's no chance he comes up there right afterwards and swings the bat the same way he did. So, Rock, I had one more thing for you. I'm going to throw you a little curveball just because we are about 2 weeks away from the Major League Baseball draft. And I'm not asking you about any specific players because but I will ask you this. With the 5th pick, that's what the Cardinals have coming up in the draft. It's an interesting year because there's philosophical discussions, right? There are 3 pretty high level college left-handed pitchers who everyone thinks will be going in the top 5 or 6. And then you've got 2 high school shortstops, both from Oklahoma. One of them, we might know his name, Ethan Holiday, Jackson's younger brother, Matt's kid, and then a kid named Eli Willits. And then there's apparently what I've read is the top high school pitching prospect. He's a right-handed kid in about a dozen years coming through. So there's 6 guys out of that crew. And for me, the question is not whether you take this one guy, because truth be told, we all know it's a bit of a crapshoot, like with when you're drafting baseball players. But philosophically, in your mind, do you think this team sits there and says, we're close, so let's go grab a guy who might be able to help us next year, like one of these high level? I mean, if you watch the College World Series, LSU's Cade Anderson was a guy who went out there and just shoved and won a College World Series by himself. Like, do you want that guy who might be on your team next year? Or do you sit there and say, these 3 high school players, the 2 shortstops, this pitcher from California, maybe they fit our trajectory a little bit better where they'll be ready in 4 or 5 years type thing. And at that point in time, we'll have a better understanding of where we are with all the guys who are our current, I'm just curious your thoughts on what mindset this team should jump into from the draft.
Well, I read a fantastic article on The Athletic about the pitchers in this draft, and it was breaking down Liam Doyle, Cade Anderson,
Jamie Arnold.
It also had a little bit about Kyson Witherspoon, Seth Hernandez.
He's the high schooler from California.
And was there another? I think that was all the pitchers they talked about, and then they talked about Ike. Irish. What's his name?
Ike Irish.
Ike Irish. Such a cool freaking name. Ike Irish as well. So I am really excited about these pitchers, and in fact, I almost every mock draft tells me the Cardinals are a little bit hooped in that all 3 pitchers and Holiday go 1, 2, 3, 4 in almost every single mock draft I have seen. But On 3, which is an incredible website right now, has Arquette jumping up to 3 for the Mariners, and then Holiday going to the Rockies, which would be, for a lot of the storylines, also kind of hilarious. But that means that Jamie Arnold, the Florida State pitcher, would be the one that falls to the Cardinals. I'd be really excited about that one because while Liam Doyle and Cade Anderson are obviously the bigger names, to the point where Doyle and Anderson apparently could be looking at getting relief work at the major league level this season for their teams, if they're the right teams. Arnold's right there as well with them, but the thing I like about Arnold more is that his release is apparently a lot more smooth, whereas Anderson and Doyle have more of the violent, aggressive kind of positioning and follow through that we see from so many pitchers that causes problems. So the fact that when I read through all these 3 guys, and the only difference that jumped out in all their descriptions was that the Florida State kid Arnold is more of a smooth motion. That tells me less of a chance to blow out his UCL. So I'd love any of them, but right now I'm kind of locked in on Arnold from Florida State for that reason.
Okay. All right. It'll be fun to see. It's just an interesting thing because obviously, this is uncharted territory for the Cardinals, back-to-back years where they're drafting very high. Most of the guys they get are lottery tickets to some extent, right? And hoping late first round, you're going to find a guy who will pan out after developing. And the Cardinals have done a nice job of drafting and developing. I think that goes without saying with what you're seeing this year, but it'll be interesting because these are impact guys supposedly. And, it'll be very interesting to see what the team does because it is almost more of a philosophical choice at this point in time, than it is a specific guy. And I know that they have to, they got to call a name, but it's like, do you want the fast riser, Do you want the guy who maybe's got a little bit more upside, who's playing in high school now and that sort of thing? So very, very interesting to see. All right, Rock, I think we're about out of time, 45 minutes into this thing. Thanks so much for being a part of this show, and everyone out there in YouTube land. We appreciate all of your comments. This has been the Sports Hub, the Cardinals Hub post-game show, sponsored by DraftKings. And again, all content on STL Sports Central is presented by DraftKings. We will see you tomorrow. Cardinals going for the sweep against the Guardians.